the sporting world reacts to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Coming up. Condemnation of Russian President Vladimir Putin as world sport takes a stand, from the football pitch to the Paralympics and motor racing. Bans implemented and events cancelled as the door is slowly shut on Russia. For the first time in recent memory, we are seeing the likes of FIFA, UEFA and other giants crumble under global pressure to take a united front. Russian teams are banned from competition, sporting events are moved or cancelled altogether, sponsorships across all sports and divisions are ended. These are just some of the outcomes so far as the international sporting community moves to further isolate Russia.
For 15 years, German football club Schalke played with the logo of Russia's state-owned energy company Gazprom on their shirts. Now, the partnership worth €9 million a year to the club was abruptly cut short, and players strode out in altered jerseys for the first time on Saturday. Across the Bundesliga's first and second tiers, clubs and fans denounced President Vladimir Putin and his military's invasion of Ukraine. Pleas for peace could be seen around the grounds, and all games were preceded by a moment of silence. Similar sentiments were expressed across the sporting landscape around the world. Formula One abandoned the Russian Grand Prix, scheduled for September in Sochi, while allowing Russian drivers to compete under a neutral flag this season. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin himself, a black belt judoka, has been stripped of his title as honorary president of the International Judo Federation, the most senior official position he held in the world of sports. And European football's governing body UEFA stripped St. Petersburg's Gazprom Arena of the hosting rights for this year's Champions League final. Like Schalke, UEFA has also decided to cut ties with Gazprom. The energy giant was one of the organisation's key sponsors since 2012. The partnership, worth €40 million a year, had previously already attracted criticism. Russia is being told clearly that at present it is unwelcome in the world of sports.
One of the first athletes to openly condemn Vladimir Putin's aggression in Ukraine was Vladislav Yerasievich. Just weeks ago, you may have seen his face and his call for peace during the Winter Olympics in Beijing. He's the Ukrainian skeleton athlete who put his no war message out there after one of his runs at the Games, as Russia was amassing nearly 200,000 troops on his country's borders. Vladislav Yerasievich joins me now from northwest Ukraine. Welcome to DW. The IOC and China both said that athletes shouldn't protest, but you did so anyway. Tell us about that moment.
I would not call it protest. I will call it call, because I'm not mentioning any other country. I just mentioned my country and that I want a peace in my country, and I want a peace for people who lives in my country.
And I mean, you're back home now, and you're in and out of bomb shelters, and you could even be asked to fight. Have you heard anything yet? And do explain for our viewers what the situation is like where you are.
Now where I am, it's now for a moment only sirens play, but I don't hear explosions. But I hear it at morning, at yesterday evening. So it's absolutely terrible to see what I see, and I spoke with my friends around the Ukraine, and it's terrible situation. They like Russian attacks kids, they attack civilians. So it's terrible, and it's terrible that our all families in Ukraine suffering now because of this invasion, and I hope it will end shortly.
That's understandable. Have you been spoken to about joining forces to help fight? Has that been a discussion you've had yet?
I wanna, but suddenly I don't have any experience in military thing. I'm not a professional soldier. I'm professional athlete and Olympian, so I fight on my platform, and I fight on my way with support of world community.
I mean, that's the most important point. You are, of course, an athlete, and you were one of the athletes who was demanding that Russia and Belarus be suspended from competitions. I mean, despite the International Paralympics Committee's decision, very little has actually changed for Russian athletes. What did you think when you heard the news?
It's unacceptable. It's very important to mention that Russian athletes, not only in Olympic sports, but Olympic sports also, like Olympic, Paralympic, they all members of military, Russian military. So they have straight connection to the war, what we have now. Secondly, like invention of Ukraine, it's a very big breach in Olympic and Paralympic charters, and they should have strong sanctions. But now it looks like nothing's changed for them, and they already compete under natural flag in the Beijing Olympic Games. And also, like as we know, athletes is a face of the country in some way, in some side of the view. So they use athletes as propaganda. I already got a lot of messages from Russia, and I show it one of them in Instagram. So Russian athlete wish me like get bomb in my house. So their minds are already in propaganda, and they should be suspended from the sport.
Thank you for that, but do stay safe. Thank you for talking to us. And since we talked of Vladislav Iraskovich, the International Paralympic Committee has indeed banned Russian and Belarusian athletes from competing at the Paralympics. Previously, the IPC had said competitors from the two countries would take part as neutrals. However, it has changed that decision a day before the Beijing Games were due to start, with athletes already in China to take part. Football's world governing body FIFA has suspended Russian teams from all competitions. The decision bans Russia from the upcoming World Cup playoffs, the Women's Euros and the Men's World Cup. Here is a look at a frantic few days in world football as FIFA was convinced to take a stand.
Russia hosted the last Men's World Cup in 2018. Russian President Vladimir Putin and FIFA boss Gianni Infantino acted like best friends. Even then, many in football were uncomfortable with Russia hosting a World Cup following its 2014 annexation of Crimea. Now, after the invasion of Ukraine, throwing Russia out of this year's tournament in Qatar in November and December has become the big topic for the globe's biggest sport, even if Russia had not even qualified yet.
FIFA condemns as well the use of force by Russia in Ukraine. Violence is never a solution.
FIFA initially said Russia could no longer hold any international matches at home, with neutral venues used without any fans. No Russian flags or anthems would be permitted, and the national team would be known as Football Union of Russia rather than Russia. But this was not enough of a punishment for the invasion of Ukraine, according to Poland, Sweden and the Czech Republic. Those nations were future or potential opponents for the Russians in March's playoffs for Qatar. After consultations with our players on the Polish national team, the decision was made that it does not matter in what location, we do not want to play against Russia, and this way we want to show our protest against Putin's aggression against Ukraine. England followed suit in saying they would not play Russia for the foreseeable future. This all gave FIFA no real wiggle room when it came to Russia playing at the World Cup, with the International Olympic Committee also adding to the pressure. Despite Infantino's close bond with Putin, he's been left with little choice.
Let's get a global view now from the group global athlete. Cara O'Donovan is a former world champion kickboxer and now speaking to and for world-class athletes around the world. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show. We're seeing some unprecedented decisions considering how reluctant global sports has been in the past to punish Russia. Is it too little, too late in your eyes?
Yeah, I think while there's been a huge amount of statements coming out from different sports federations, I think, first of all, we have to look at what the detail says. And like the Olympics, for example, on Monday, they really did pass the buck. They haven't actually sanctioned the Olympic committees of Russia and Belarus. And so it needs to go further, and it's definitely late in the day. So we have to see more sanctions, starting with the banning of athletes in Russia or from Russia and Belarus in the Paralympic Games that start this week.
Some say that all of this is part of sports washing. I mean, could you tell us what that is exactly and how it works?
Right. Well, sports washing is certainly not a new concept. It is used by a lot of authoritarian regimes to cover up, for example, human rights abuses. And I know Beijing Olympics and Paralympics have been widely criticised for the use of sports washing. Sport has been an enormous part of Russia's political agenda, both domestically and internationally. And so that's why we are calling on severe sanctions on Russia and Belarus, because they will use these games, they will use sport to cover up unjust actions at home and to use this as part of their agenda. It's something that we are seeing more and more of, because the likes of sport, the IOC in particular, they've been complicit in this. They've been very, very happy to sit by and allow these types of countries use sport for all the wrong reasons.
You say that they've been complicit. Do you think international sporting bodies have actually learned from this? Do you think they will act differently when they host countries in the future?
It's hard to answer that question. There's part of me that's a little optimistic, but I have heard people say that there's been a huge change now when we see all these sports federations come out with statements like they have, with severe sanctions. And, we have to recognise that that's not true. This is only the start. But I do think the fact that there has been so much public pressure, a lot of that pressure has come from athletes, and that has forced a small piece of change. And I would be very hopeful that athletes are going to grow from this and just put more and more pressure on sports federations to make sure that they don't get away with this.
Cara O'Donovan from athlete-led group Global Athlete, thank you so much for joining us.